Oh, I was still muted there. But welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. Today I am joined by Gven Sariol, correct?
Yep, Sariol, yeah.
Sariol. Okay. So, just real quick, I wanted to drop our newest sponsor. Um, Luckily, thanks to them, we can keep this show moving. So, right now, you can go to nadeushaveco.com, use promo code RISE15 uh, at checkout to get 15% off your order. Nadu Shave Co., where tradition beats modernity. So, thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Now, let's just dive straight into it. You are the founder and CEO of Arc Crypto. Exactly what do you guys do for people who have never heard of you?
Yeah, so we teach what's called decentralized finance. And decentralized finance is basically a way for you to become your own bank. And, given the headaches and the downfall of so many of these regional banks and probably soon, large banks, um, in my opinion, I think it's always good to have some money stashed away in your own custody. But what we teach is basically, the new tricks of finance, which is doing what the banks do, and what that is essentially like peer to peer lending, peer to peer trading, and allowing people like real financial freedom. Like in my opinion, if you have like all your money in the bank, you don't have financial freedom because for whatever reason, government steps in and locks your money up. You're screwed. But with the blockchain, you're able to have custody of your own money, and there are things that you have to set up properly. But that's essentially what we've been teaching now since January of 2018.
So, you guys are really taking the place of what should be done uh, typically in schools. Because I'm not sure if you remember too much, but I was never taught financial literacy in school.
Well, it's not just financial literacy, it's also custody, right? And our founding fathers, for those of you who are in the United States, really wanted a decentralized system. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason that behind America. And the more that America grew and grew and grew, the more centralized it got. And obviously, it's now sitting in its iteration. So it's not just teaching people financial literacy; it's also teaching people financial custody, which is, in my opinion, just as important as like knowing what you're doing.
So, I mean, you don't have to go that far to realize the economy is not great. Uh, in my opinion, you also don't have to go that far to find out why. It seems fairly obvious to anyone even halfway paying attention. But just on the odds that somebody isn't paying attention, do you want to give them your synopsis of like why you believe things are getting so bad and why a service like yours is so needed today?
Yeah, I mean, let's kind of go back because this started a long time ago. And this started, back around the early 1970s, 71, 72, when we got off the gold standard, allegedly for like the second time. And why did we get off the gold standard? Because all these other countries that were using our currency as a reserve status, at one point in time believed that they could cash in their dollar notes for gold. And when the United States government started printing more dollars than it had gold, these governments were like, wait a second, we'd rather have the gold than the dollars because that's what actually has value. And so they depegged it. And ever since then, and we've seen this in multiple different civilizations before: Rome, Spain, China. Um, but once they depegged it, they debased it. And what ended up happening was we started seeing cost of goods go like this but wages go like this. And so we've had this deviation, massive deviation over the last, 50 some years in cost of goods and wages. And that's why, like, we're in kind of like a recession, kind of. Um, but the real recession is like a slow bleed. And that slow bleed is, and it's just going to keep getting wider and wider, is, the haves between and the haves nots. And so one of the things that we do is we show people how to get access to different things in the DeFi ecosystem so that you can actually keep up with inflation. Because, you can take a look at inflation. They say they're going to bring it down to like 2%. I don't know if I buy that. I don't think it was ever 2%. If you take a look at, cost of goods and housing and rent and all these things, food. I mean, if you take a look at just your food bill, let's say from 2019 to today, it hasn't gone up by 8% or 10%. It's up 100%. And so there's some numbers there that are being fudged that I just don't quite buy. But the wages haven't ended up keeping up with it. So how do you end up preserving your capital? Well, you're not going to put it into a 10-year T-bill, because that would be, absolutely ludicrous. Because if you're not making, in my opinion, at least 7 to 12% per year, then you're losing money to inflation. So you've got to find the right assets that will outperform inflation, and that's what we're showing our students. Now, sometimes it comes with so a little bit of tightening your belt and having laser focus, because the crypto market is a wild ride. It is the wild west right now. But just like in the wild west, there was a lot of opportunities, but a lot of scams, a lot of pitfalls that you can be a victim of, and that's what we've experienced ourselves, and now are able to teach our students, like, hey, don't do this, stick to here, even though it's not quite as shiny, you're going to be okay, here's why. And those are the things that we teach. But the main lesson here is, how do we outpace inflation so that when we get old enough, we're not living off a $2,000 per month Social Security, if it's around. And that's $2,000 25, 30 years from now, which God knows what that's going to really be worth. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to be worth much.
Yeah, so it kind of seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, or tell me if you agree with this, crypto, it's here to stay no matter what. There's, I mean, without something major happening to, actually, I'm not even sure exactly what could get rid of cryptocurrency itself, but this is an ecosystem that it's better to learn about it because it's pretty much here to stay. Would you agree?
100%. In fact, I was just at the gym this morning, and I was with a buddy of mine. He's an older gentleman. He's in his mid 60s, and we're having a discussion, and he's very big on real estate and gold, which that era is very traditional on. But our age, we're not buying. We might be buying some gold, but at the end of the day, like, why would you buy gold when you have Bitcoin? And the use case for Bitcoin, in my opinion, is way stronger than gold. Like, gold, to transport, let's say you've got $1,000,000 worth of gold, you're not, unless you're taking it on your private jet. And if you have only $1,000,000 in gold, you don't have a private jet, like,
Yeah.
you're not taking that across the border very easily. And where are you storing that, right? Most likely you're not storing that in your home. You're storing it in some, institution or bank where you've probably been KYC'd and the government knows what you have. So with crypto, and I'm not saying that, anybody should hide from the government at all, but with crypto, at least you have custody of it. So you have the ability to transport it with, a small thumb drive, or, your keys. If you're very bright, you can memorize your keys, and, you just restore your wallet when you get to whatever country that you decide to, or whatever destination you decide to. And so if you need to access the crypto. So I think, a lot of people just, they sit here and they get real caught up in trading and finding the next, 100x gem. But really what crypto is about is a more effective transfer of value, and a more decentralized transfer of value. And I think that's what, we all want. Like, the technology is there, and it's like you said, it's not going anywhere. It's just getting better. And each time we have kind of these bear markets, everybody just kind of tightens their belt, and puts their head down and pedals that way as fast as they can and as hard as they can. And lo and behold, the technology just keeps evolving and evolving. So we're really bullish at my company about where crypto is headed.
So one thing I know that I've heard a lot from people is a concern of crypto uh, becoming centralized, pretty much just like our current fiat Federal Reserve notes. I know a lot of people have made the argument, specifically like with Bitcoin, that it's pretty much already compromised because of who's funding the programming behind it, um, which I would probably agree with. What in your opinion, what do you believe are some ways to be able to hedge against this?
you know for me, the most important thing is not allowing like a CBDC or a central bank digital currency, although I think it's inevitable, unfortunately. Are there state heads determining the direction of Bitcoin? Possibly. Are there state heads determining the direction of Ethereum? Possibly. But at the end of the day, um, there's some really, really bright individuals who do believe in that decentralization, and the freedom and right to your own property. And I think we would have known, and I'm not a programmer myself, but I think we would know if they had some, back door in there that could suck all the Bitcoin back, but that would give it zero value. So I don't think that they're really interested in that. So while they could be doing that, it would behoove them, probably not to let that cat out of the bag, because if that happens, then, the actual value of Bitcoin goes to zero. And I don't think that they're interested in letting that occur. Not by any means.
So one thing you had brought up the term DeFi. Do you want to explain what that is for people who don't know?
Yeah, so DeFi is decentralized finance. So we have like TradFi, which is traditional finance. So that's, when you talk about TradFi, you're talking about the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, you're talking about JP Morgan Chase, you're talking about TD Ameritrade, like the institutions, the brokers, the banks. And essentially what happens is they have custody of all your money. And when they have custody of all your money and stocks and bonds and all this stuff, they also are privy to all of the fees that are charged along with it, right? And everybody gets a cut. The bank gets the cut, the institution gets the cut, the broker gets the cut. Everybody gets a cut except for the little guy. And none of it is transparent either, right? So, when you have a lot of these big names, like, the top investors in the world, like Nancy Pelosi, and some of these other politicians, right? They don't have to register their trades within 45 to 60 days of them making them, and by then they've already probably made off with a bundle of money. That's why they're outperforming the market, because they do get access to insider trading, and they use it to their advantage, and there's no law that's stopping them. Now, if you're on the blockchain, one, you get access to actually have the opportunity to make those fees that the banks and institutions do by providing liquidity. And I'll circle back on that here in a second. But two, you also have transparency. So like one of the things that I do often, like yesterday for about 2 hours, and today I go looking through some different wallets, and seeing what their strategies are. And I can see like clearly exactly what they're buying, where they have it staked at, or where they're providing liquidity at. And I can see kind of where the trends are headed based off of that. Now, imagine again, Nancy Pelosi, if she had to put all her stuff on a public blockchain, which that's the key, is having money on a public blockchain where everybody could see. Well, you just evened out the playing field, right? And so that's what I'm really for, is the transparency, the decentralization, and I think that at the end of the day, that's going to win versus this secret society fiat currency shit that just people keep putting on a pedestal that's just not serving anybody. It's not working, and we're starting to see that by all the things that we were talking about earlier, by the deviation of inflation and wages, and people are just done. I think they're just starting to see through the veil.
One thing that kind of makes me laugh is a lot of these dinosaurs in Congress and everything, or over at the FEC, are trying to govern this new technology by the traditional finance rules, which
Yeah.
those rules are already archaic, considering just normal traditional finance. Yet they're trying to govern this brand new technology that's just really in its infant stage by the same rules.
Yeah.
What do you view what the FEC is doing regarding pretty much anything regarding crypto?
You're talking about the SEC?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about that, because that's really important. Like, I am totally against the SEC. I mean, it's a run by numbskull number one, Gary Gensler. And I mean, I've never in my life, and I've been in crypto now for 6 years, and been teaching it for 5.5. All right. And, Jay Clayton, the SEC commissioner, the head of the SEC, last time around during the Trump administration, was, he was skeptical. Like, there was a lot of crazy stuff going on back then, like ICOs and just rug pulls left and right. But even he's gotten on over the last, few months, saying basically that this guy, Gary Gensler, has, his head in the sand. And not his head in the sand. He actually knows what he's doing very well. I mean, he used to teach crypto at MIT, for God's sake. So he's been quoted and videotaped publicly, essentially saying that 85% of the cryptos in the world back in like 2018 or 2019 are all are not securities, are commodities. And so I think that we got to identify a couple of things. One, I think some form of regulation is important, because there's a ton of scams. In fact, I'm working on a YouTube video just before I jumped on this in regards to scams. And so we've got to come up with protections, because, there's not so many people that are as savvy. And I've even gotten scammed, all right, as like somebody who's been doing this for a really long time. But there has to be some level of regulation. Now, here's the caveat, right? We have these things called smart contracts, and we have the technology right now in order to come up with the laws and make sure that none of those scams ever see the light of day in a decentralized, regulated arena. And I think that the SEC, the CFTC is, maybe not the CFTC as much, because they're not so big as the SEC, but the SEC is horrified of this, in my opinion, because guess what you do if you put these regulations on the front end? You no longer need an SEC, or you no longer need the size of the SEC. And I mean, in my opinion, that's probably a savings of billions of dollars, and the savings of billions of dollars in scams. And that's the thing, is that somebody's benefiting from all of this, and I'm just not buying it, because again, using smart contracts, we can set this up and go and set parameters going like, okay, um, if you do not meet these requirements, you cannot launch to United States citizens. And there's plenty, and this is the worst part about it, because they're lumping in every single protocol, but people are finding ways around it. And again, it's just like fiat currency. They're starting to see around it and go, wait a second, this is an agenda here. And I think, hopefully, if we can get another government regime, and I'm not Republican or Democrat, I think it's just kind of right wing, left wing, same bird,
Yeah.
But I think that if we can get somebody in the Oval Office that's a little bit more pro crypto, and who understands that, and who actually believes that that you should have the right to your money. I think that's one of the what's it called? The amendments of the Constitution, constitutional rights that we have, is the right to property. Like, yeah, right. But the government, keeps violating. Man, I would argue almost every amendment that we have, and especially when it comes to privacy. So I think people are starting to lean more and more towards, look, we do want our privacy. And it's because of people like you and me that are creating even more and more awareness, and we can now do that with technology. But that essentially, that's what DeFi is: our ability to be the bank, to make the money that the bank does by providing liquidity, by providing the loans, and using smart contracts to allow your neighbor to do that at a reasonable rate, not some astronomical rate.
So I would say that, to kind of piggyback off of what I had said earlier, that this technology is here to stay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw, there was a poll through the Cato Institute, I believe, asking people about whether they supported a central banking digital currency, and most people said no, they don't. But then it turns out that most people actually don't even know what that is.
Right.
And so it kind of seems like, since this technology is here, there are, I would argue, nefarious people with, really bad intentions to be able to harness this technology to be able to use it against us, where people like you step in. It allows normal people, everyday people, to understand the technology, to be able to harness it for themselves, to keep it out of the hands, and possibly fight back against that. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. But here's what I think is gonna occur, and we're starting to see it happen like under our noses right now. So we have these things called stable coins, and for those of you who don't know what a stable coin is, a stable coin is a cryptocurrency that is either backed or pegged 1 to 1 with the dollar. So one USDC is worth $1, and it'll only ever be worth $1. And so what's happening is we have these big institutions now, like let's say PayPal, just last month or the month before, came out with their own stable coin. So this huge platform with 453 million customers has their own cryptocurrency. And while it's not fully decentralized, you're able to circulate it decentralized. But if you're a bad actor, or let's say you say something wrong on social media, like they were trying to find people, then they could revoke your Pi USD, is what it's called, PY USD. But I think that you're going to start to see a lot more stable coins flowing around, and not CBDCs, at least not in the short term, because stable coins are already here. And we're starting to see USDT go up. USDC has kind of gone down. There was a bit of a issue with Silicon Valley Bank, where they had 3 billion of their reserves with them, but the government obviously honored that. And now they're actually going directly to the government to buy these bonds, short-term bonds, so that they don't get caught in the same situation like Silicon Valley Bank did. But
Who had
there's
just collapsed not that long ago, correct?
yeah, that's back in I think February or March. They collapsed, and again, there was $3 billion in Silicon Valley Bank that they were just holding there, right? Now, luckily, the government honored that, but now what's happening is the governments are allowing these stablecoin providers to actually go directly to them and buy the bonds themselves, so that they're not stuck in these predicaments anymore. But that's already out and it's already circulating, and you have countries like Turkey, like Lebanon, like Argentina, where they're already using stable coins, and that's how they're preserving their value. And in my opinion, that's how you end up circulating the dollar throughout the entire world. You're not going to do it with an oppressive, programmable money, which is what a CBDC is, because, like, let's say Russia learned, or some of these other, countries that are definitely not pro-US, they can just sanction the heck out of them, or even say, oh, your money's not worth anything anymore. Where with stable coins, it's going to be a little bit harder to do that, and especially with some of these stable coins like USDT that are not even venued in the United States. The United States is going to have a little bit more difficulty trying to stop that than their actual dollars. So, but in my opinion, if the government wants to really, really let the dollar circulate through the world, let these companies back it up with actual bonds. That creates demand for the government as well to print more money, or to lend more money, I should say, and make interest on it. And then they can circulate that throughout the world, and everybody wins, in my opinion. But let's see. I mean, if the United States gets too greedy and they want a CBDC, they may do it, but I think that they're going to be up against a lot of people who are not interested, especially given the landscape of like BRICS going on and cryptocurrencies at the same time. There's a lot of innovative stuff that, in my opinion, will kick the dollar's ass. So I think they need to tread very, very lightly.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they need to really take a hands-off approach if they're going to be smart about this. Otherwise, they will tank what is left, because that will just scare off anybody.
Yeah. Why would you want a CBDC where literally you're dealing directly with the bank now, and with the stroke of a button, all your money can be canceled? I think every country is now kind of looking at that, going like, I don't like the way the looks of that. I don't like the looks of
Yeah.
that. That could be really harmful to our country.
Yeah. Something that this is kind of where, I'm a privacy coin advocate. I'm 100% bullish on Monero. There are other privacy coins out there that I think have utility. However, I think Monero is king.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm also an individual who believes that we should focus on the privacy, because privacy needs to be key when it comes to any of these systems. If it's not private from the ground up, then it's not private. However, I do believe certain things like Bitcoin still have utility, but this is kind of where my personal opinion is, where you straddle inside the system and outside the system. So
Yeah.
where is your position on the privacy end of all of this technology?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a proponent of privacy. Um, Obviously, like that's one of the cruxes of crypto. Obviously, though, if you know what my wallet address is, you can see, everything that I'm transacting in. At the same time, I really do think that a little bit of transparency isn't going to kill anybody, and especially with our government so corrupt. I think if we have a public blockchain where we can take a look and see, hey, did Nancy Pelosi insider trade? Did Ted Cruz insider trade? Um, and at least evening out the playing field, right? Like, can I at least do what they do then? Can I at least jump on the wagon?
Yeah.
Uh, then I'm all for that. But I do think that we should have definitely a level of privacy um, that Monero does provide, and a whole bunch of other privacy coins do. There's a privacy coin on the Cosmos ecosystem, and I'm drawing a blank, but that's the one that I am invested in. I do like it because there are smart contracts on that, and it is linked to decentralized finance. You have decentralized exchanges where you can trade peer to peer there, and it's just built for that. But it is built on a layer of privacy. And again, I'm drawing a blank on what the name of. I have so many cryptos in my brain, and I haven't looked at it in a while. So, but I do appreciate privacy, and if you want to be private with your transactions, I think you have the right to. And like you said, and maybe it's a thing of where you're going in and out of different systems, which I think Ethereum is doing a great job at creating bridges to do that, and Cosmos ecosystem as well. So if you wanted to go private, there's already a chain that's full DeFi that you can deposit your money to in there and not have to worry about getting spied on.
So one thing I wanted to bring up, and we'll kind of move on after this, is there's, like, for instance, in my state, there is a local county government who is actually taken to putting official government documents on the blockchain, and this has a lot of people worried. They started putting marriage licenses on the blockchain. Last I heard, they were not accepted by the Social Security Administration as of yet. But there's been some really sketchy things happening, only because they'll do marriage licenses for anyone around the world at all, and it's now on the blockchain, completely open to the public. And there have been concerns of human trafficking actually taking place through this. Um, what are some things that at least you know about that the normal person could do to kind of help fight back against this, what I view as an abuse of the technology?
So let me ask a question, because I want to understand how I
Yeah.
can bring value to that question. So you're saying that by them putting these things such as like marriage license, title, deeds, all that stuff on the blockchain, that like lessens their privacy? Or are you saying that it's a benefit because we're able to now see some of this child trafficking going on in real time almost?
Well, I do believe that it takes away the privacy, and I mean, some of this stuff is public record, so you can go out and access it if you need to. Um, However, this is a technology. First of all, this is controlled largely by a organization that's have proven themselves to be incompetent over and over.
Yeah,
And
that's for sure.
now we are entrusting them with medical records, school records, criminal records, everything all put onto this new technology that most people don't know what it is, don't know how it works. And with a government, whether it's federal or local, with them pushing forward, not giving the people access to the education about what it is and how it works, I view that as an abuse of the technology against us, because they'll be able to set it up any way that they want to use it against us.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, if you definitely, I think one of the things that having kind of the old system, it kind of slows people down to finding things, and potentially using that to exploit somebody or to use against them in some regards. But I think it was last year, or the year before, Vitalik Buterin wrote a white paper on something called soulbound tokens. And soulbound tokens are basically a token that gets sent to you, and it can never leave your wallet. It is bound to you forever. It's not really worth much in the sense that you can like sell it like an NFT or another cryptocurrency. And I think that if we can educate people on it and create a system around those soulbound tokens, where let's say, for instance, that information isn't provided to everybody, but provided to that person with that soulbound token, I think that would be a more beneficial thing. Because what is crypto again? It's the transfer of value and information at a much faster rate than we had before. And so, let's say, for instance, if I need to get like, my marriage certificate for one reason or another, why do I still need to go through all of these, major hurdles to get this to me, right? Where if I have a soulbound token and I'm the only one that's able to do that, and I can show and verify, by auditing the smart contracts that works that way, exactly what it says, then I think we should be able to have access on the blockchain. But there's, like you said, there's some things that come along with that. Education is a big thing, right? Which I mean, it's so stupid when I hear these government entities doing things like that and they're not teaching anybody how to use it, right? Like 99% of the people don't know how to actually use the blockchain. Maybe they own crypto, but it's on Coinbase, it's on crypto.com, right? But teach them, hey, this is what the benefit is, and here's how your privacy is being protected. Then I am a proponent for it. But if you're just throwing it out there and anybody can access it, heck no, no way.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the only way for a system like that to work is if the individual actually has the ability to say who has access to it. If they have
Right.
like the ultimate access, like this is these are my keys to all of this information, and I can decide as an individual who has access to what information, giving the individual the ultimate say over their information. That seems legitimate to me, but we also need people to understand how that would actually work.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And there are things like, let's say, for instance, there's like a project right now called VRA, Veracity. And Veracity is a place where you can go play video games, and they do like esports and all this stuff. But part of the esports thing is they're going to have advertisers, right? Well, instead of just going out and advertising everybody, and like Google sells all of your information, and Facebook and all these Apple, all these guys sell your information. What ends up happening now is you have to give them permission. So you may go like, you know what? All right, cool. Yeah, you guys can advertise to me, but instead of paying the platform all of the money, me as the watcher, I want to get some money, right? Like, you want access to my information, I get paid for that. And that's going to be, in my opinion, during this next bull run cycle, is going to be a big thing. Because think of YouTube, think of all these things where you're telling people, hey, give me your information and I'll pay you to like show you my content or show you my ads. I think that's going to be a game changer for commerce as a whole. But again, there has to be that like main thing there called consent. And I
Yeah.
think, like, we've all seen this with social media, with all these platforms, right? They have just sold us like cattle, and crypto changes that. Crypto changes that. And I think, again, it's another way for us to distribute the wealth, as opposed to having that wealth centralized in these technocrats.
So really we're like at the precipice of like ultimate freedom coming back to the people if they want it.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, if what I'm hoping is if enough people uh, don't accept a CBDC, if enough people are like, I'm fed up with Facebook, I'm fed up with YouTube, I'm fed up with these people, I want to get paid for that. Like, my time is worth money, my information is worth money, my being is worth money, and not to other companies, but to me. I should be able to participate in that. I think we're going to have a revolution like we've never seen, and especially with AI coming out. I mean, it's just getting easier and easier to work and easier to delegate things off, and not have to have so many people. So how are we going to keep an economy going? It's going to be a digital economy, and it's going to be probably based on attention.
So this leads me to ask the question: somebody who doesn't know anything about this, where do they start?
I mean, you can head over to our website, arcrypto.io. We've got a lot of resources there on, how this DeFi actually works. The other thing is you can go down, to YouTube University and try to get that set up. That's the way I did it, of course, but and just a lot of trial and error. But we've got, I think we've got over 12, 13 coaches right now, and we've got another 12, 13 staff. We've got 6 classes that we do during the week with new information, and another 3 classes that are just constantly rolling live with workshops. And we can definitely help people, kind of avoid some of those traps, like the scams, like, giving away your keys, and showing them how to really self custody their money and make that passive income, so that you don't have to, be competing with inflation for your dollars. So that's how they can learn, in my opinion, or find another company that does something similar to what we do.
Yeah, but let's just go to you instead because
Yeah.
you know, track record has proven, and it's really, really easy to fall into these scams. Even people trying to teach, I've noticed
Yeah.
I mean, I still get messages, text messages, phone calls, emails of like, I actually got a Nigerian email scam just a couple of months ago, and that's been going since what, the late 90s, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's still
And
happening, and so in this new technology, it all of it looks so bright and shiny like you were saying, and it's very easy to trip into a scam.
yeah, and I'll, like, for your audience, let me give you, because there's, especially last year when kind of the liquidity dried up because the Fed started lifting the interest rates, and it just started sucking all the liquidity out of anything that had any risk associated with it, except for real estate. Um, and and so, you know, there was probably 2 or 3, I don't even want to call them projects because they weren't projects, but investments that I got into that I got scammed. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, really bad. Now, the good thing is I didn't have all of my money in there, obviously, because I knew that anytime I gave away my money to somebody else, there was a potential that I was going to lose it. But I'm going to say this just for your audience because I think it's really, really important. 2 things to remember. All right. If you do have a wallet, okay, if you're being asked for your keys, either by a website or a person, you're about to have all of your money stolen from you that's in that wallet. Okay. Another thing is, if you send people crypto and they tell you that they're going to make you some guaranteed, some astronomical rate, guaranteed, then you're asking to have your money stolen. And so, there are no guarantees in investments. There are no guarantees in crypto. And you certainly need to be vigilant when, you're being solicited, and especially if your money goes away. Now, if if you learn decentralized finance and you put it into a smart contract protocol that that's got a good interface and a good team behind it, and you've done your research and you know what to look for, like us, then that's great. That's okay. You can put it into the smart contract because I trust the code more than I trust people. And so those are the things you really got to watch out for, because the scams just keep getting more and more elaborate. Anytime you transfer your money to somebody else, and they may even pay you some money back, right? Which is, one of the scams that I personally got into, and I didn't have a lot. I had maybe 6 Ethereum in there, all right? Which for me, it wasn't a lot. For somebody else, maybe it would have been. But compared to my entire portfolio, but still, it sucked because I'm like, man, these guys literally took me for a ride. They allegedly had some insurance backed by a high valued asset, and they had a law firm in London and Dubai certify the insurance contract. And I mean, it ended up being a scam. This high value asset ended up being worth $5,000-$10,000 because
Wow.
we had it personally appraised after the fact, and it was just like my heart sank. But I learned the lesson. Right now, I just go there. If it's not DeFi, or let's say if it's not in an account, like a public account, a Binance account, a Binance.us or Coinbase, where I actually have custody of it, then I'm not even coming close to touching it. And I don't have really any money in centralized accounts, but maybe somebody wants to use like a high frequency trading bot or something that connects that. I understand that. There's potentially scams there, but they're fewer and far between. And that's the only thing that I would have like any money in a centralized exchange. But you got to be careful, because there are some elaborate scams going on right now. And anytime you're transferring money to somebody, you need to be double, triple, quadruple checking. And in 99.99% of the times, I would not do it.
So I think that's one thing that scares so many people off, is just because there is so much personal responsibility. And as somebody who, pushes the liberty message, which is all personal responsibility, it's a really tough sell these days. It's really tough. But I have noticed there are organizations such as yours that make it digestible. Um, what's some tips that you have for people getting into this, because it is extremely overwhelming, just like looking from the outside in?
Yeah. So, one of the things, like you said, there's a lot of these coaching businesses or info businesses where they'll teach you how to make $1 million in 10 weeks. Right. And so what I always tell everybody is like, don't FOMO, slow-mo, right? Like, slow yourself down. You're not in any hurry. Most money is made over time. All right. It is definitely a rule of thumb. Now, could you get lucky in crypto? Yeah. Like you could get in, like I really started hitting crypto hard. I kind of went away because I was diagnosed with colon cancer. So I went away for about a year and some months from teaching crypto. And I got back in. I still had crypto, but I wasn't passively managing it. I got back in 2020, and I took $15,000 and dollar cost average in about another 120 over the following 2 years. I turned that into over $2 million in just a year and a half or year and 3/4. And was I lucky? No, because I also understood what I was doing. But I also got in right at the right time. Now, if I would have really been paying attention in 2018 and 2019, and the parts that I missed out, I would have made a whole bunch more money. Right. But it's during those hard times, you got to slow it down. Don't get crazy. Don't be buying these meme coins. Don't take a tip from your friend because they probably don't know. Like I have so many analytics, Jacob, that I go through before I buy a crypto, and most of my crypto is in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Just because I take a look at some of these cryptos and I'm like, this is BS. This is crap. But how do you grow your Bitcoin? So instead of you owning one Bitcoin, by the end of 2 years, you've got 200 Bitcoin. That's what we teach, and it's a simple formula. It's just the way the institutions do it, but we don't have access to it.
Yeah.
But now with crypto and DeFi, we do. So again, like the most important thing is don't come in here expecting to get rich quick. Slow it down, learn the skills, learn the tools, so that when you buy even Bitcoin or Ethereum, you're like, I made the right decision. I made the right decision.
So I've always viewed these coaching programs like I'll get you rich in a week as just like the as seen on TV, like I'll get you fit in a
Yeah.
week.
Right.
Just
Right.
like it's just like junk material.
Yeah.
And in those coaching programs, you're the product. Like your
Right.
information, adding to their email list, which they can do God knows what with. And you are the product that they're trying to make money off of, which they inevitably do.
100%. Yeah. And,
So,
and look, and so at the beginning, when I first started this, I had to tussle with that as well, because I'm sitting here going like, because so many people, including like some of my business partners who hadn't even signed up with us yet. I remember one in specific, Jeremy, he goes, so if you're doing so well, how come you need to sell a course? And my answer to that is because I really do believe in mass adoption, and my time is valuable. So if I'm gonna take some time from going to teach people away from me managing my portfolio, and also I don't want to go and do what I used to do either, which was working in the law and trading crypto. I'd rather create a community, which we've got a wonderful community, an amazing community where we can be talking about crypto and I'm teaching what I really love while simultaneously investing and sharpening my own skills. And so the way I see it is, do I make money off of my students? 100% for them coming in, right? I'm not going to shy away from that. And I'm not going to say, no, of course I don't. Do I take a majority of that money and invest it? 100%. And at one point in time, I was taking 100% of the money that I would earn from education and putting it into decentralized finance, and I would live off of the dividends that I was making. But right now is, in my opinion, is the time to be stacking, and I'm putting as much back into that as I can, and not taking any out, because I want to see that compound effect, so that in 2 years, or next year when the Bitcoin halving occurs and when the market starts to really explode, I want to have not the 2.5 million that I made, exponentially higher this time around.
so what would lead you, somebody with your knowledge, what would lead you to believe that we'll see this huge explosion coming up? Not that I disagree. I'm just curious what your stance is.
We've got the institutions coming in now, and I think that they're just not turning a blind eye to it. They're in the what's that? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. But I'm going to take it a step further. Once you win, they join you, and I believe that that's really what's happening. And for those of us who have been in crypto for, like, let's say the last 6-7 years, it's been a hasty fight, between the governments and the scammers and all the craziness of the technology and the ups and downs. But you have guys like BlackRock, which I'm not a fan of. All right. But, they've got $9 trillion. If you add up their GDP compared to all the countries in the world. They're the third largest country in the world, and then you have guys like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, JP Morgan Chase. You add up all of them, they are the biggest country in the world. And so that money is flowing into the blockchain. JP Morgan Chase is working on decentralized finance right now, bringing in real world assets onto the blockchain. So we're going to see the stock market. We're going to see real estate. We have a tokenized real estate project where you can buy tokenized real estate, and you own the economic rights of the profits, and you just get money airdropped to your wallet once a month when the tenant pays. And so there's all sorts of really, really cool things coming up that we can do with tokenization. And the institutions are coming, man. The ETF filings for Bitcoin, you think that's going to stop there? Heck no. They're going to go to Ethereum, which Ethereum is, planting more and more of its seed in the ground as a commodity. You're going to see other cryptos out there that are going to become ETFs, and they're going to create probably their little blockchain, that's somewhat guarded. But it's coming, man. It's coming, and it's coming within the next 2 or 3 years. For like the stock market and all that stuff, probably 10 to 15. But for the things to start happening, like tokenized real estate, there's already thousands of properties already tokenized, and I see within the next couple of years probably get up to in the millions. And so it's coming. These are the things that I just see every day because I'm entrenched in it. But I forget not everybody's in crypto,
Yeah.
And so, but they'll see it when it hits, and by then, it's not going to be too late. But I'll have had my pound of flesh.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, get in now before a lot of this stuff is established, so you can establish yourself right alongside some of these major players.
Right.
Because that's
100%.
one thing. Now, I do believe that, there is a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that gets spread. And I think that it gets spread to be able to scare a lot of people away. So these systems can be established without our input.
Right. Yeah.
And, just push through some of that, because the best thing you can do to fight that is the education.
Yeah.
And if these people are interested, like, you got to remember these people want to make money too.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we do fight back against a lot of the centralization of the technology itself, is to get in while they're establishing it, because you actually get some sort of a say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%. And we're seeing that, right? Like with DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where, you're, by the amount of tokens that you hold, you're able to actually vote and determine the direction of the project that you're passionate about. And most cryptocurrencies nowadays are DAOs and allow that. So, I think that, again, the cat's out of the bag now. Now it's just a matter of letting it grow and gain its own strength. But at the end of the day, like Elon Musk said it best, like, somebody asked if they thought, crypto or fiat currency was going to be the next real currency that we're using, or CBDCs. And he said, I think personally, it's going to be the one who provides the most value. And I mean, think of CBDCs. What value is a digital currency? We already have digital currency for the most part. We all spend it on a Visa. It just doesn't clear immediately. But who cares about that? The end user doesn't see that, right? Most people don't understand that their purchases don't clear in an instant, right? Crypto is just a way for us to transfer value faster. But here's the thing. If they're still printing unlimited amounts of currency, if they're still able to play the interest rate like your favorite CD, what's the difference? Nothing changed, right? It's just more control over your money. And so I think once people realize that, and they're like, maybe I want some Bitcoin, maybe I want some Monero, they can't control this, and it's way more freer. and maybe there's some more guardrails, you know, in the future, which I think that they're coming, so that you know, maybe these scammer wallets are identified long before, if there's a connection between certain wallets. So they you know, it automatically prompts you, you're about to send money to a scammer or something like that, you know. um and
Yeah,
I
some
think
sort of
that,
reporting system. I would
yeah,
actually
we
I actually wouldn't mind seeing something like that, is be able to report known scams.
well, you know, like our company, like we practice what we preach. We actually pay um our contractors and vendors in crypto, majority of them. uh, and you know, we teach them crypto and all that stuff. But um, you know, we use a system called Fireblocks, which is a multi-sig, probably the top multi-sig in the world, and and we already have access to those. Like, so if I'm about to send money to a wallet, it'll, that blacklisted wallet, or you know, its affiliated wallets will pop up in Fireblock saying, hey, this is a scammer, or this wallet has been linked to scams before in the past. Are you sure you want to send this? And so it's coming. It's coming. It's just takes time. These things take time to build. So
Yeah, I mean the traditional finance world has had, you know, what seems like millennia to be able to multiple millennia to be able to do what is already established, and now this is an entire new frontier.
100%, 100%. So they're we're gonna get them kicked out of finance, where DeFi will be finance, you know, in the near future, not decentralized finance, just the way we're going to do business. And we're working hard to make sure that that happens through education.
Well, honestly, I think that is absolutely perfect. This is a perfect time for people to jump in and learn something that you're going to have to deal with one way or another, whether you like it or not. This is coming. This is going to be adopted by institutions all over the place. So learn it now while, you know, everything's being formed, everything's getting set up. So you actually have a real good grasp on exactly what's happening, which is exactly why I was so excited to have you on. Somebody who's out there offering their services to teach people. Um, Education doesn't come free, unfortunately, or fortunately, either way, because I think it's awesome that you make money from this, but you also provide a really good service. Um,
Jacob,
so
let me tell you, it's funny. And I encourage anybody who's starting a business to test this out. Um, the more you give out for free, the less the student is going to commit. When the student commits financially, it's almost like a contract with them and themselves to like stay accountable, because they don't want to lose that money. And so, like I say, fortunately, like when I pay for things like that, and I know that I'm going to get value out of it, I'm like, cool, because this is going to hold my feet to the fire. Because if I just got it for free, and I've given our course away for free at the beginning, nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. And then we started charging, and I was like, oh, I guess we just needed to charge. People will actually listen. So, yeah.
yeah, that is actually pretty funny because it does show people that this is actually serious and you can actually get something from this. Um, Besides, I'm all pro free market. So
Yep.
if it's something you're interested in, yeah, it's not going to come free, but it's an investment, right?
It
You
is.
invest some money up front and you learn where to go from there.
100%. 100%. So,
Well,
cool, man.
on that, I think we'll wrap it up. And here's the website for anyone interested. arcrypto.io is the website, which is also down in the episode description. Make sure and go check these guys out. And like I said, this is a technology that's here to stay. It will be the centralized without being centralized. It's going to be the hub of everything, and you need to jump in and you need to learn this. Also, some of the fears that, I myself personally or some of my listeners would have, we've got an opportunity to be able to harness this technology before people with nefarious intentions harness all of it, and we have no say in it, and it's used against us. And that's how we do it, is through education provided by organizations such as this. And so, on that, do you want to give a shout out to your socials or whatever you have going on, where people can find you?
Yeah, you can reach me at Wealth Renegade on both Instagram and then also on YouTube. My YouTube channel right now is just a bunch of shorts, but we're starting to come up with more long form content. But those are the two places that if you want to keep up and keep learning more, maybe before actually jumping in, we'll be able to give you some good alpha there.
Awesome. Yeah, give people a little bit of a taste before they take the plunge. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I would definitely like to get you back on at some point to get an update on exactly what's going on in the market, kind of just where things are going as this entire community and entire ecosystem develops. Because I'm always curious about it, especially with somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about. So,
Yeah, let
with
me know.
that, yeah, definitely, I'll keep in touch, and we'll do this again because this was fun. This was definitely fun.
Awesome, Jacob. Thank you so much. Grateful that you had me on, man.
Anytime, you're always welcome. So, with that, thank you so much for tuning in to Rise to Liberty. Make sure to check us out at risetoliberty.com/links, which is where you can find your preferred platform. It's everywhere we are on the internet. Make sure to follow multiple platforms because our big tech overlords like to make sure that we are not growing, not seen. We can't be shared with other people. So make sure get out there. That reminds me, hit the like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that stuff that we always have to say. It's a good way to fight back. Screw the censors. That's pretty much all I got to say. And with that, until next time, stay free, my friends.